4Kids was running an announcement for a new show. 4 turtles, 4 brothers, all ninjas, fighting crime in New York City. It was 2003, the theme song was admittedly cringy, and there was just so much green. But there was also amazing action, charming characters, some of the most insane plot developments I've ever seen. The first time I would meet my mildly embarrassing childhood crush, we'll get to you. And then I found out there were more of them. Same souls but different faces, but no matter what, I stuck around to see what new journeys they would embark on. It was like watching a reincarnation cycle in action. I don't know how else to describe it. I got to see old friends return, but on that same token, so did old enemies. And then I fell in love. Very much so. Hi, it's me, Vicky. We're going to talk about Rise of the TMNT's character design and how it never gets enough credit, because some adult children who still sleep in the same unwashed bedsheet through middle school associate change with sacrilege. We'll be covering each of the turtles one by one. We'll be discussing the hallmarks of Rise's character designs, ranging from the turtle species to their shape language. My god, we're rambling already. But let's lay down some groundwork. Rise of TMNT is the 5th installment in the nearly 40-year-old TMNT TV series. For the sake of brevity, I will be referring to Rise of TMNT as Rise from here on out. Produced by Nickelodeon and animated by the spectacular Flying Bark, Rise premiered on Sunday, March 19, 2018 to...
I can tell you that this series was either made for people who haven't seen the original, don't like anything about the original, or it's been made by people who either haven't seen the original or don't like it. Even if I had never seen it.
It's going over the top on the comedy side of things, and it's so unfunny, and it's so enraging, and it really doesn't get any better after the first episode either. It's going...
Yeah. For Fate, each entry in the TMNT series is doomed to a litany of comparisons and criticisms. If you could call criticisms blind hate, then sure. Rise's vitriol was a different animal from previous incarnations. Almost immediately, fans attacked the character designs and art style, ranging from outright attacks on the skills and credibility of the crew to a resounding "this sucks." Twitter and Reddit at its f***ing finest, what can I say, guys? And that upsets me deeply. There was a conscious decision to transform the series by taking it in a new direction. The 2003 Turtles were fighting crime the moment the pilot episode started after completing their ninja training. Meanwhile, the Rise Turtles can barely get a group alibi straight because we're meant to be dragged along for the ride as they train to become the Turtles we've always known. But the interesting part about this already fascinating departure is how the Turtles look more like lizards or frogs and, well, turtles, which can and is attributed to their new lore addition. They're part human. Yep, Splinter's baby gravy was put into a cauldron with super serum and that shit was spread on the baby turtles like butter. No, I do not have an accredited source. By having varied builds resembling that of human body types, the turtles can move either like unstoppable tanks, rolling over enemies with the ferocity of a speeding cannonball, or a tweaked out Beyblade. Ida Hem served as head character designer for Rise, injecting a sharp anime-inspired aesthetic to the original TMNT formula. Her style is composed of jutting angles that dictate a line of action so powerful each pose is dynamic and intentional. Proportions aren't really the rule of the game in the show, as it prefers stylized figures to add emphasis to action. The line width ranges between bold and razor sharp, and fuck does it make those expressions pop because you can tell exactly what a character is thinking, or well, not thinking. This one is friend-shaped. This one, wanted for crimes against humanity and twerking to Angel by Sarah McLachlan. This one is a slut who cries, and this one, he's literally a wall. These are wonderful examples of shape language, defined as a concept used in art and animation to communicate meaning based on shapes we are familiar with by the Walt Disney Family Museum. Rise's character design relies heavily on this principle. For example, squares are sturdy, balanced, and therefore reliable because of their equilateral sides. By pairing varying styles of line work with cohesive shape arrangements, Ida has successfully conveyed the personalities of each character. Ida also makes wonderful use of the concept of line of action, as we had mentioned earlier. Line of action, as defined by Merriam-Webster, is the line along which a force or the resultant of any number of forces may be considered to act. Line of action is an imaginary line that runs down the spine. Imagine taking a character starting from the center of their head and then ending at the tips of their toes. The line of action is meant to be a directional arrow per se, where it indicates where the main flow of action will be occurring. And this would be a great time to start the actual analysis.
Later games are the single greatest day of the year! It's better than Halloween, Thanksgiving, my birthday, me finding a...
I can't get enough of how cute Mikey looks at Rise. He's like a friendly balled up pile of Play-Doh, with these pinchable cheeks and a toothy grin. I love that they carried over the orange bandana from 2012 TMNT. It gives rounded curves, making it look more like a boat than a headband, and it's much shorter compared to his brother's. The turtle emblem sits on his left chest and is attached to matching orange stripes. A little heavy-handed of them, but I love the meaning behind it. And look at those eyes! They're more cat than turtle with the way they curve to a point. And he is the smallest of his brothers, standing at a measly 4'7". I would like to interrupt this broadcast to announce I am accidentally taller than a Ninja Turtle for once. I need to take this in. Okay. His shell has two equally sized, square-shaped patterns running down along his shell. In keeping with the theme of smooth curves, Mikey's plastron and shell have the same silhouette of an inverted pear. Both the shell and plastron start out wider as it tapers out and towards the bottom. Doing so draws our attention to his short, oval-shaped legs so we can appreciate our short king's calves. Overall, his shape language is composed of circles and rectangles to tell us he is a friendly and trusting character. Soft shapes and curves are associated with nature within the human psyche. Hence, they are seen as natural and non-threatening features when the goal is to convey an innocent, happy, or cute character. Mikey's muscles are compact yet toned, similar to that of a dancer's. Mikey, like a dancer, relies on explosive actions for his fighting style, holding in concentrated energy before releasing it like a coiled spring. We will see that each of the boys' builds are inspired by real athletic figures. The visual language uses this as shorthand to inform the viewer of what their specialties involve. His tiny stature isn't to be judged lightly, however, as it makes him the perfect aerial combatant. Instead of nunchucks, Mikey uses a kusarifundo. Bonus points when you consider how Mikey can conjure flames with his mystic energy. These were the anime powers I mentioned earlier, by the way. It lights his kusarifundo like a live wire, adding an explosive boost to his attacks. I guess the flaming skull helps. It makes so much sense. There's a trend with the boys' mystic energy relating to their personalities, and like an open flame, Mikey is vibrant, warm, tenacious, and wild. This mystic art can have a mind of its own, however, a reflection of Mikey's initial inexperience with controlling his newfound powers. How this evolves into the power to split dimensions and send people flying through time, I cannot tell you, but his future abilities feature chains, which are most likely a reference to his original weapons before he eventually loses them in the future. Now, I think Mikey's weapon more closely resembles a chigiriki, but I'm not going to pretend I know dick shit about Japanese weapons. It has a handle, a chain, and that's as far as I'll go. This isn't to say giving Mikey a chain or whip-inspired weapon is a bad idea. Mikey has this added mobility that likens him to Spider-Man as he whips around building to building. There's a spastic and explosive energy to his fighting style now that wasn't as present in previous series. Sure, he was a jokester who played around with his environment to win fights, but it's not the same controlled chaos as Mikey throwing a fucking building! And since he's so tiny, kinetic energy is the modus operandi of Mikey's design. He is an artistic, confident, and easily excitable goofball with a heart of gold. This is communicated by how often Mikey is depicted smiling, literally grinning from ear to... That doesn't work for this. Never mind. Not to mention, Mikey is decked in gear he's customized one way or another with some ink. Like, he has these matching orange knee pads with silly faces scrawled onto them in marker, a pop of charm if you ask me. His artistic streak also extends to the stickers on his plastron, these little bolts of magenta and neon blue, and these beautiful flecks of color complement the specks of light orange that decorate his skin like paint splashes. This is likely a reference to the species of turtle Mikey is based off of, the ornate box turtle. The two other features that communicate Mikey's personality are his posing and expression work. I mentioned it briefly, but Mikey is a guy who loves to smile. It's in his bio. Like past incarnations, he's the life of the party, happy-go-lucky, easily excitable, and childlike. So how would you go about showing that to the audience? Would his shoulders be rolled back, perhaps slumped over like a depressed hunchback? I mean, that would work if you wanted to fuck up his character writing. But if we want to do things right, then we would pose his character with outstretched arms, a big ol' smile, puffed up chest, head held high, and a curved back. Whenever I see Mikey throwing his arms up, I can feel the joy coursing from his core to his limbs. He is the sun personified, his squishy face constantly upturned in a joyous expression of love and faith in his brothers, himself, friends, and even his enemies. Which is what I wish I could say for Donnie.
I'm sorry, can I have a moment?
But we still love him. Someone was waiting in the bushes for their chance to flex their fanfic credentials. Donnie, and let's be honest, is the turtle who usually...
He needs some milk!
His character writing and development has been consistently lacking, save for that legendary Donnie-centric episode Same As It Never Was from 2003 TMNT. Donnie has always been the smart one, the compassionate one, the passive middle child, the shy one, and the helpful one, but never the interesting one that gets the character development they deserve. Where is his window moment? He still has his 4-digit IQ and rise, but... Rise Donnie is our narcissistic, callous, prideful, touch-averse, and unhinged inventor with an even more massive hard-on for the periodic table. His overconfidence stems from knowing he can outcode any MIT grad while slinging heat on the dance floor. He has these beady triangular eyes that are always half-lidded, and bent into this disinterested expression. When he's not hunched over his desk, he's standing straight while showing off some shiny new tech he pulled out of his ass at 3 a.m. His skull looks like some kid glued a rectangle to a circle, its verticality stretched to unseemly heights akin to an IMAX screen, probably to make room for the most even eyebrows known to James Charles Kind. He has a big-ass canvas to work with thanks to his purple bandana. Danny's eyes... Wait, who the fuck is Danny? I'm sorry, I'm so fucking sick right now. Anyway, Donnie's eyes are sharp and triangular, constantly half-lidded, in general disinterest of anything non-tech. Donnie sometimes serves a judgmental glare, and it hurts. His turtle emblem sits on a neat little utility belt wrapped around his waist, because Donnie is a functional and stylish bit. He is the mitochondria, and he is the powerhouse of the homitose cell. I don't know how else to describe this Donnie aside from the mad scientist who has the nuclear code saved to his Tamagotchi. He's still a genius when it comes to tech, and an absolute boon to have as support for the team. Surprisingly, his weapon remains unchanged. Donnie still uses a bow staff, but now it's a titanium rod that can transform into a rocket, circular saw, selfie stick, mallet, and probably a dildo, but you didn't hear it from me. As such, it's been affectionately rebranded to Tech Bow. Comes in purple. This sets up several opportunities for Donnie to manifest his intellect into impressive inventions. I love that Donnie's goggles have their own legacy. 2003 Donnie had triple lens night vision enabled goggles, while 2012 Donnie had his welding goggles, and even Michael Butt. I fucked that one up, well, at least you guys know how I feel about Michael Bay. As I was saying, even Michael Bay's Donnie has his own pair of specs, and you can't pay me enough to like this version, like seriously. Donnie's goggles have this cute homemade feel to them in Rise. They're a little crooked, and they just so happen to be the two colors that make purple. He looks like he's rocking a pair of 3D glasses all the time. 3D glasses that have a super mystical magical rock that lets him detect mystic energy, because you know, he refuses to use his own mystic powers because it's not real. Okay, Donnie. Donnie's staunch opposition to his mystic powers is a writing decision I will get on my knees and praise every single day. His belief in the sciences is so powerful it bled into his design. His refusal to rely on his mystic powers gives center stage to his technology and pure bow staff skill. We don't get to see his mystic art until the climax of the movie, and it's glorious. Donnie's mystic art summons the entirety of the Pentagon Department of Defense, Resident Evil 4's new Game Plus arsenal, and a KFC meal deal. With his signature purple glow, it is similar to Raph's as it is a weapon projection. From a visual standpoint, it ties back to Donnie's toolkit of namely, his drill that's seemingly always stuck in beta. No matter the circumstances, Donnie is an inventor at heart. To say this moment was hotly anticipated is an understatement. We, as a fandom, were blue-balled into oblivion waiting to see if Donnie was ever going to break character and just pull the trigger. And his reason for breaking his code? This audacious little turtle man is composed of 70% inorganic shapes such as squares and rectangles, 30% spongy ovals. I've never seen a rectangle with such a smarmy grin, but something has to put some hair on my chest. As a mutant of science who reinforces the logic-based paradigm of the laboratory arts, Donnie's design is meant to match his morals and role. While Mikey's body is made up of organic shapes or ones that are naturally occurring in nature, Donnie is the stark opposite. He looks like a geometric arrangement. Donnie stands at 5'3", 3, thus he has a slimmer and taller build in comparison to Mikey. Instead of having dot-like patterns on his skin, Donnie has purple squares on his arms and legs. Donnie's entire body, plastron and shell included, constitute a combination of ovals to dictate his muscles and limbs, and sharp geometric angles to indicate his tech and armor. Clear that the intention of this design was to flaunt Donnie's technological prowess. His body is covered in not just protective padding, but features neat gadgets like red and blue goggles and a silver tech gauntlet. That's not the only cool part though. Let's look at his shell. Immediately we're met with a purple grid-like cover, far from the average appearance of a turtle shell. This purple slab of metal, otherwise known as the battle shell, looks more like a fortress, and it gives the illusion of a hulking backpack against Donnie's spaghetti frame. A consequence of Donnie's species, a spiny softshell turtle, is that his natural body leaves him defenseless. Donnie's soft shell serves as an interesting metaphor for his touch aversion, and at times emotional detachment. He's dramatic and sometimes even susceptible to his brother's crazy proclivities, but God is he me with how he refuses to cry. I think I audibly gasped when I saw the tears rolling in the movie. The writers were nutty. They conspired with the artist to create this insane inventor who thinks he's so above emotions, and he keeps that shit suppressed like a can of Dole's pineapples. Sponsor when? As someone who could be fatally injured in his natural state, Donnie reflects this in his unwillingness to be sincere or emotionally vulnerable with those around him. I like how we've been sifting through tiny twink turtles, and then there's Raph.
Well, it started 6 years ago. We got swept up in the water bottle challenge.
The layer cake?
Raph fans be eating good because he gets so much love in the series.
I love being incontinent.
Remember how it was a recurring plot point that Snape wanted to be the defense against the dark arts professor? Raph has been itching to be leader since the goo hit his shell. Raph's violent temper was a consequence of his rivalry with Leo. Leo's always been the eldest son chosen by Splinter to reign in his brothers, and that pissed Raph the fuck off. Raph has had the meanest hate boner since Mirage. He's been a tried and true sarcastic cynic for most of the series, a violent and ferocious fighter with a desire to form connections with other people. Until now. Raph, like Donnie and Leo, goes through a massive transformation in personality and design. Contradiction was at the forefront of his conception. Raph's personality is always at odds with his silhouette and body type. He ditches his side for some mystical tonfa that can conjure red projections of himself. Perfect offense and defense, it's like summoning Clifford the Red Dog, but he can protect you from the foot ninja and level neighborhoods. The tonfa, and this may be a controversial opinion, is the ideal weapon for Raph's philosophy. He is a brawler/monk styled combatant who relies on overwhelming his opponent with sheer might. In a way, and this is a bit of a reach, but I believe the tonfa is kind of like a metaphor for how overbearing Raph can be as the leader. For example, there are times where he may overstep boundaries with his brothers, thinking that he can always insert himself into their emotions and any of their problems. That's kind of what his fighting style always has been about in Rise. It's all about how he can invade the other person's personal space. However, the Tongfa can go on the defensive at the drop of a hat. He towers over the rest of his brothers, standing at a stupendous 6 foot. As a 5 foot concrete goblin, anything above 5'5" is all the same to me, you fucking giants. Raph is a tank of friendship and cuddles, which you wouldn't gather from him since he's...
I ain't got time for this. Bring it like a boss.
Yeah, he just wants to play Animal Crossing under a blanket fort. The way my third eye was pried open by this revelation that a giant alligator snapping turtle hybrid had a weakness for friendship and sparkles. As the eldest and most responsible of his brothers, Rise's Raph is the leader of the Mad Dogs, copyright pending. His body is built like a square, 4 equal sides of straight defense. Formations of triangular spikes and jagged skin line the perimeter of his body, shell included. A cross-shaped bandage sits on his right chest. His signature red headband is now a red bandana with tears along the seams. Raph's shell and plastron are fractured spikes, chipped in place from years of hard training. Bandages wrap around his knuckles and ankles as a demonstration of close combat prowess. Like Donnie, Raph wears his turtle emblem like a belt. There's a cute touch where it's crooked sitting off to the side, his elbow pads come out to a point, blending into the rough texture of his arms, and his tights are color coordinated with his bandana. Raph is anything but detail-oriented. Raph has the muscles to support multi-generational trauma. From his straps to his thighs, Raph's muscles bulge like the rolling hills of Italy. Raph uses these assets as both defense and offense, as demonstrated by his weapon of choice, the tonfa. His massive stature allows him to absorb attacks and return them tenfold as he shifts from brawler to shield in seconds. As the muscle and leader of the group, Raph's design exudes an intimidating aura. Raph will come off as dangerous to the uninformed with his serrated-looking ass shell. The combination of squares and triangles paints the picture of a dangerous yet sturdy individual, capable of consistently doling out massive damage. You could cut yourself just from looking at him. Obviously, this silhouette is based on an alligator snapping turtle. Now, this is somewhat of a contradiction to Raph's personality. Let's look at Raph's face. It's wide and composed almost entirely of circles. His mouth is a thin line flanked by a sharp curve of the lips with a single canine sticking out. One tooth adds a touch of mischievous scamp energy, but really he'd always help an old woman cross the street. His personality, for the sake of consistency, is reminiscent of a person composed of circles. He loves the gentler things, the softer things, and reassuring people. Raph has a strong moral code as a consequence, believing that it's his responsibility to lead his brothers down the path of vigilante heroism. He's just in case in the sarcophagus of a monster truck loving testosterone-addled Chad. He's to look the most lethal of the turtles, but is also the most sensitive. It's interesting to think that the writers stuck to the core of what makes up Raph, his passion. He tackles enemies with the same deafening power as his leadership responsibilities. Raph takes great pride in being the honorary himbo, bulldozing through enemies with no regard for his personal safety if it means protecting others. While Raph was designed to be the best weapon, he's also the best shield. However, that isn't to say his anger was completely erased. Raph isn't running around picking fights, starting shit with villains, or bullying Mikey, no sir. Being a perfectionist has its downsides, and Raph suffers from it greatly whenever things don't go according to plan. It simmers until it boils over, and then Raph explodes a lot like his prior incarnations, and I feel for him. He just wants his brothers to stop trying to end their subscriptions to life. Can you blame him? Rather than impatience being the impetus of his rage, it is Raph's anxieties over leading his brothers down the right path. It can be positive. It makes his blood run hot as he solos hordes of enemies, barreling through piles of monsters like they're nothing but suggestions. I will argue that he's better than Leo in one regard. He is a nurturing and commanding presence, and he isn't against having fun. Sometimes he's down for some tomfoolery, he's not above it. So why not get to the source of his anxiety? Rise Leo was absolutely tired of being the responsible older brother and belly flopped into his slut era. But he's still the cutest turtle.
Hello,
Vicky.
how are you doing?
He's so stupid, I love him! Answer for my crime, just put me in a cell with him! I'm so embarrassed, holy shit. The grip this man has had on me since I was a fetus. We don't talk about the husbando list, it is my cringe and cross to bear. Where past Leo took to responsibility and leadership like bees to flowers, this Leo would rather be the court jester who rakes in the glory of having the last laugh. He's a lackadaisical slacker, coasting by until he cooks up some unconventional solution, and generally here for the vibes. I think Bugs Bunny got lost and somehow ended up here, because that's exactly what Leo is. He prides himself on being the charismatic member of the team, the face man, so to speak. Rise Leo speaks like he was thrown into a vat of Marvel quip juice and now he speaks in one-liners. The job of his character design, then, is for us to unearth what qualities make him a leader. Leo stands at an easy 5'5", a whole 2 inches on Donnie. They share similar builds, both slender and toned with an angular head and matching triangular eyes. His shit-eating grin is stitched onto his face like a permanent sneer, and yet we let him get away with it. While Donnie scrutinizes one's spirit and soul with his half-lidded eyes, Leo's eyes are cat-like in the way they contort or expand with wicked fascination, another quality that he shares with Mikey. Leo can summon mystic portals, and if that doesn't suit his fighting style beautifully, it increases his range to an almost infinite degree, making his speed supernatural. For one so incapable of standing still, it's like a match made in heaven. With a single slice, Leo has a nutty pipeline for himself and his brothers as they're spat out at death-defying speeds. His headband is the closest design to the original, covering only his eyes with the tails trailing behind him. Leo's body reminds me of a Tatsunoko character, like Cashin for example. His muscles aren't defined, but they're there. He has the slim superhero build, as I like to say, kind of like how Spider-Man has a defined chest and a defined lower abdomen, but it's not large or muscular much like Captain America. And before I forget, Leo also shares the same design choices as the rest of his brothers. Now, he was also designed after a real-world turtle species called the red-eared slider. They're those little turtles that you see in a lot of freshwater lakes that have the yellow patterns along their arms and the red striping along their eyes. Now, you can see here that Leo's version of a red-eared slider is extremely stylized. I mean, if we look at the patterns on his shell, they're made to look more like Mikey's. We already touched on that. But also, it does replicate what the red-eared slider actually does have, which are these soft, rounded shapes. Now, the thing about red-eared sliders, as we already established, is that they have those yellow patterns along their arms, but I think it also serves a dual purpose when it comes to Leo's design. Since he is an odachi user, or basically the longer version of a katana, and he uses both, I'm not surprised if they actually gave him the striping on his arms in order to resemble scar tissue. He has these triangular shoulders that accentuate his narrow hips, indicating a line of action so limber it always looks like he's poised to run away at any trace of responsibility. Leo's frame is trim, so as to support his best physical quality, speed. Raph is built like a massive square, and as a result looks like a wall. Leo is a nice combination of organic versus inorganic shapes to capture his aggressive fighting style and his magnetism. In a way, it's like they were trying to get the balance between Donnie and Mikey by mixing these organic and inorganic shapes for Leo. Leo does not loom over others like Raph does, thus already making him more approachable. The sharp shadows cast by the edges of his plastron directly contrast his smooth shell. It curves gracefully like a hillside, the peak of the hill slowly giving way to the base. On the shell are round patterns, very similar to Mikey's, possibly to signify how they're like kindred spirits. Legit, they're volleying the same brain cell back and forth half the time. It's great. Of course, Leo has his own version of the turtle emblem with color-coded strap. Despite his dedication to being flashy, a blue pack hangs on his right hip. The placement of his turtle emblem was probably meant to make his utility pack easier to reach, and his legs, just like his arms, are trim and thin with slight muscle. But there is an absence of shin guards or any padding for his legs for that matter. I mean, cool, it matches your arm guards, but goodbye to your kneecaps, holy shit. See, this is interesting. This is how you show how feckless and irresponsible a character is. Similar to Mikey, Leo was designed to accommodate his erratic and swift fighting style. Arguably the second fastest of his brothers, Leo has the frame of a long-distance runner. Something I would like to return to is how similar of a build Donnie has to Leo. Both of their bodies are toned with lean muscle. They aren't big and obstructive much like Raph's. However, when we do a side-by-side comparison of Donnie to Leo's build, we can see that Donnie's figure is much more cluttered thanks to the introduction of all of his tech and accessories. It would make anyone scratch their head as to why Donnie and Leo look so similar. I mean, it's a common joke in the fandom that they're twins for crying out loud, but I think it's something beyond that. According to Leo, Donnie is too much of a stiff.
Where's your thing, your emotionless passion?
Here.
As according to Donnie, Leo likes to have fun at the expense of others.
Heads up!
There is this back and forth throughout the series and this comical misunderstanding between these two because they're both narcissists. To say that they think the universe revolves around them is an understatement. And to be quite honest, it's a lot like getting mad at your own reflection but not realizing that you're looking into a mirror. Yeah, they love each other. But anyway, before I get more distracted, I am so in love with this iteration of Leo. This and 2003 Leo are on the opposite ends of the same spectrum, and boy is it fascinating. The spectrum being my family is in danger, time to rush into heavy traffic. They just have different yet identical means of doing it. Either one is really healthy. We've already established that Leo is like the new Mikey, token comedic relief, but remember that this is the same guy who's supposed to be the leader. Rise is in the title of the series, so like, when is he supposed to get his shit together? Leo is one part fear and one part bravado. He loves his family deeply, and that's the one thing that remains consistent about him. And he loves them openly, albeit with an egotistical flair because only he gets to be the pretty one. Donnie, I'm only paraphrasing. However, Rise Leo is too immature to accept how responsibility to his family comes at the cost of self-motivated antics. And he's dreadfully afraid of the truth, covering up with fake charisma and a sly smile with a wink. This fear is at odds with his wish to prove his self-worth, because admitting he has something to prove means leaving himself vulnerable. So what do we get with this new strain of Leo? Rise's DNA, as we have established, is interwoven with the collective of past TMNTs. I think Leo is the essence of this evolution. Rise Leo taps upon an unexplored quality of his personality that past incarnations were unable to, and this is where I'd like to explore the concept of strategic capacity. Strategic capacity is defined as the ability of an organization to fashion a novel solution to an emerging crisis. Resourcefulness is prized as a key tool for executing the unique skills of a team's members. This heavily relies on the leader assigning roles that play on the strengths of their allies. Leo comes to terms with this step by step before it reaches its climax in the events of the film. I threw a lot of fucking words just now, and I know I'm probably speaking to the void that nods back at me, but listen, this shit goes deep and we are going in raw. Leo has to first come to terms with his anxieties of being seen as unreliable by his family. Using humor as a coping mechanism has finally caught up to him, and now he has to rely on his own strengths before utilizing his brother's. His charisma, his perseverance, flexibility, tenacity, and unshakable belief in his family. The Leo we love has always been there. He just had to get over himself first. This is why I find the dynamic between Leo's character design and his personality to be the most fascinating. He undergoes a character arc similar to a reformed career criminal. They're forced to leave behind their ways of trickery and lying, accepting that facing their ultimate challenge involves choosing a life of honesty and honor. I don't feel comfortable saying Leo and Raph are foils. Rather, they have different leadership styles that make up for what the other lacks. Raph and Leo love having fun, they're a couple of goofballs, and both are capable of coming up with ingenious solutions. However, like we just reviewed, Raph is actually diligent and focused on the goal at hand, while Leo has the attention span of an ant hauling a crumb of crack. Look me in the eyes and tell me there is anything behind them. Because of this, it isn't fair to say that Leo and Raph are foils to each other. Although Leo is small and skinny and Raph is big and wide, I'm running low on brain cells, I have no other way of describing this, they become leaders for the same reason. The purpose of their character designs is to tell the story of how the principles of leadership can be embodied by people of two different creeds. Oh my god. Oh dear god, I have a fucking cramp, but like mentally, if that makes sense. I need to lay down. After we bring in honorary mention, get your asses over here, strut down the runway, yeah!
Felt very pedestrian.
It may have looked like you purchased it at the resort gift shop. Your evening realness.
More than.
Oh my god, he on X Games.
Two queens, stand before me.
Yes.
Are we going to ignore the fact that someone on this crew was a part of the early 2000s TMNT fandom? Oh, I didn't think so, because there are so many juicy visual references in here to movies. Like Leo in the risky business fit. I always thought that one was super cute. My god, the JoJo poses. Leo and Mikey in their cute little tennis fits. Leo in that stupid ass Clint Eastwood reference and that stupid ass RE4 Leon reference. Oh my god, and Mikey in that cute little MJ fit. And then Raph has the vaporwave fit, and then that stupid ripped up shirt. It's so stupid. It's so fucking dumb.
That'd be so stupid. So stupid.
And Donnie is just such a fucking slut. He just popped in the collar, showing off his titties. And he has this purple scarf that's serving that Hugh Hefner realness. Love it. It's good stuff. Go watch the show. It's on Netflix and season 2 is on Paramount Plus for some fucking reason. I don't know. You wanted me to watch Rise from day one. Just show me the Hamato clan fits. It's illegal to look this good. The sheer audacity, I swear. An obvious yet stylish callback to the Turtles' original red mask, the Hamato clan drip is phenomenal. It's a goddamn deluge is what it is. Though they are all uniform in spirit and mind, their silhouettes are completely maintained. It's a heavy-handed way to say they're all on the same page for once, but that type of shit, you know. United in body, mind, and soul, that type of shit. The boys are decked out in the crimson and black of their clan, their headbands now identical bandanas, and no other accessories except Donnie. Dress code violation, you had one fucking job. Their eyes even do the glow thing, so they look like predators? Itadaki fucking mas bit. Sure, if this were High Guardian Spies, I'd understand. No, I have not seen it. I'm only speaking from my experience as a trash spectator. But this? You want to shut down this? Unacceptable, you should be ashamed of yourselves. But if you're also a fully grown adult who loves the art of children's cartoons, holla at your girl. If you're a longtime TMNT fan who's been looking for a sign to give this show a try, this is it, honey. Again, same soul, different faces. And yeah, that shit show that you just watched was my first ever video essay, or at least an attempt at one. You'll see how messy this is, because I didn't even get to touch on the part where Raph's body is sculpted like that of a strongman. He basically is built like a couple of tree trunks coupled together with some rocks for shoulders, you know, the norm. I've been thinking about this topic for a while, and I just wanted to manifest it in some way to you all. And this part's gonna be just a mess, because it's largely unscripted. basically I just want to say thank you. If you sat through this entire video, you got a taste of what goes on in my mind whenever I can't sleep at night or when I start drawing at 3 a.m. because I just simply can't sleep. I really struggled to record this, as you can probably tell from the first half, because I was so sick with the flu around February, which is when I started recording. And then after that, I had to learn how to edit on Vegas Pro 15 all by myself, just with some YouTube tutorials helping me out. And that was interesting. I'm pretty much a character designer, mostly leaning on a illustrator discipline, so this was a really interesting piece of territory to go into. It's why I get so heated about this topic, because I just did not anticipate for the show to get as much hate as it actually did. There are a couple of things I wish I could have touched on, but seeing as how this video is already over 40 minutes, I can't really touch on it more in depth than I already have. For example, I would have loved to sink my teeth into the whole April being black debacle. That shouldn't even be a fucking issue. It's something that wasn't even really predicated on good logic. Her character is still this reliable spitfire of a woman slash girl who helps out the guys, and I just love how she's more of a surrogate sister rather than a potential love interest. It's great. If I could do one thing in this video, if I had one goal, it was for you to walk away with a greater appreciation for character design and just a greater appreciation for the show. Because I'm fucking sick and tired of shows like this and Owl House not getting enough acclaim. Thank you to anyone who stuck around for the entirety of this mess. This burning dumpster fire that you bumped into on your way home, its stench permeated throughout the neighborhood, but you were brave enough and stupid enough to come find the source. I love talking about character design. It's an unspoken language shared with our eyes and hands, and it's lovely to think that maybe there are people out there who love dissecting this language as much as I do. Thank you for joining me on my first ever video essay and on my journey to create a YouTube channel where I talk about my passions, and hopefully I might be able to help some people find theirs. If you want to get cozy with me, get under the sheets, tickle the subscribe button. You guys, take care of yourselves. This has been me, Vicky, and I hope you have a great day. Deuces.